6:31 on Tuesday, November 12th. This is the East Bay Charter Township regular board meeting, and we will call the meeting to order, and we'll begin, if you'll join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and we'll do roll call attendance.
Sure. Walters.
Present.
Bartlett.
Yes.
Cortate. S. Cortate.
Here.
M. Cortate. Here. Lyle.
Here.
And Friend.
Here.
And it's noted that Cook is absent and excused.
Okay, very good. We will review the agenda for conflict of interest. We have a consent agenda, and actually I will be asking for us to remove the date change for the December Board of Review. Schedules have changed with staff. And so as regular business, we have a discussion on stormwater easement, a request for a stormwater easement, request for a B Hotel liquor license, public hearing on Scout Camp and Traeger Road Special Assessment District, new zoning ordinance and zoning map, possible adoption, public hearing on lighting, special assessment districts, and fiscal year 2025 budget. And with that, I would, first I would see if there's any conflict of interest. Is there any conflict declared? Okay, with that, we'll look for approval of the agenda, and I would like to move the zoning ordinance to C, switch the Scout Camp public hearing and the zoning ordinance, just transpose those for C and D. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda of Tuesday, November 12th, 2024, of the East Bay Charter Township Board. Make the changes of AD, the zoning ordinance, move to AC, and current AC move to AD.
Okay, is there support?
As well as taking away H1, the date change for the Board of Review.
Yes.
I'll second it.
There is a motion by Walters and support by Escortade. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by no? All right. We have an agenda and we will move forward. With that, this is the time for public comment. The public comment policy is on the back of our agenda. You are welcome to come up to the podium and give us your perspective. If you are going to speak on Scout Camp and Traeger Road Special Assessment District or the Lighting Special Assessment Districts, we request that you hold those comments until those agenda items. Other than that, for anything else or for any other agenda item, please feel free to come up and introduce yourself and let us know your perspective. Okay, seeing no public comment, we will move on to correspondence and reports. In your packet, you will find 4 weekly updates from the Grand Traverse County Road Commission, the Traverse Connect Business Growth Barometer for the 3rd quarter of 2024, the Cherry Capital Airport Annual Report, the Traverse Area Community Media, which hosts does our televising, their annual report, as well as a treasurer's report, supervisor's meeting log, also an email to the township board, an offer of employment for the assessing administrative specialist. That was a board action from the previous month, and this is just an update on that. You also have links or information about Planning Commission, ZBA, and Parks Commission. Do you have any questions on those? Okay, with that, we'll move forward to the consent agenda. Ann, will you go over the consent agenda, please?
Sure. The purpose of the consent agenda is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one board motion without discussion. Any member of the board, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion, such requests will be automatically, if any item is not removed from the consent agenda, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single board action adopting the consent calendar. Read the same line twice. Board minutes, October 14th, 2024, regular meeting minutes, recommend approval. From the general fund, check numbers 19082 through 19108, paid in the amount of $52,336. From the emergency fund, check numbers 5758 through 5765, paid in the amount of $10,420.50. From the receiving fund, check numbers 2954 through 2956, paid in the amount of $680,583.69. The escrow fund, check numbers 2041 through 2044, paid in the amount of $17,614.31. There were no checks paid from the roads SAD fund, and there were 2 payrolls. The first one dated October 6th through October 19th, check numbers 7823 through 7827, totaled $69,857.18, and the payroll dated October 20th through November 2nd, check numbers 7828 through 7833, totaled $81,435.87, and total payroll was $151,293.05, and total amount paid $912,247.55. There are no proposed budget adjustments, and there was a date change for the December Board of Review, but that got removed.
All right, very good, thank you. Would anybody from the board like any item from the consent agenda removed? Okay. Would any member of the public like any item from the consent agenda removed? Okay, we'll bring that back to the board for a motion on the proposed consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Okay, is there support?
Support.
Was it Matt? Okay. That was a motion by Bartlett and support by M. Cortade. And Ann will do a roll call vote.
Bartlett,
Yes.
M. Cortade,
Yes.
Walters,
Yes.
S. Cortade,
Yes.
Lyle,
No.
Friend.
Yes. All right, very good, thank you. We will move to business before the Township Board. First on our agenda is a request for a stormwater easement, and this is with respect to Holiday Forest 2. Do we have Bill Crane or Bill Klausville? But Bill Crane, very good, thank you. And also Claire is here as well. Claire, you can take a seat up. I think your name placard was there. But this came out of 2 meetings that we had with Wade Trim, and I was in attendance at the first one, Claire was in attendance at both, and of course, Bill Crane was there and Bill Klaus was there. And this is regarding Holiday Forest 2, which is located obviously near Holiday Forest 1, and it has to do with the stormwater. Claire, do you want to recap some of what we talked about at the meeting, and then we'll ask Bill for some comments as well?
Sure, yeah, so the Holiday Forest, it was approved by the Township Board back in early 2023. So they're in the process of securing the land use permit for that. They've gone through the water and sewer approvals, gotten those permits, so stormwater is kind of the one last key component. There's some topographical challenges that we were working through, and so my understanding, kind of the non-technical version, is that they can store the kind of 25-year storm event on site within the basins, but then our ordinance also requires a back-to-back 100-year storm event to be handled, not necessarily within the basins, but somewhere on the site. Otherwise, it needs to have an outlet to run off into. And so just given the proximity to Holiday Woodlands, that was an option that was identified by our township engineer as a reasonable option. And my understanding, again, would be that this would be a very infrequent occurrence to have the water overflow into the Holiday Woodlands Preserve. It would be, for something that exceeds a 25-year storm event.
And Brian Souza was on site to Holiday Woodlands Natural Area to see the terrain and where it would be. And Bill, I believe you were on site there as well. Do you have additional comments or requests?
Not a lot. Bill Crane, Crane Engineering here, representing River Road East and Holiday Forest Phase 2. Yes, I was on site. Not at the same time Brian was there, but I did do a walkthrough on the property. And I think the information, I provided a plan of Holiday Forest, and we have 2 retention basins that border on the east boundary of the Holiday Woodlands Preserve Township property. And as part of the stormwater control ordinance, if a stormwater retention basin does not have an overflow route, then you're required to store a back-to-back 100-year event on-site on property. But with the proximity to the Woodland Preserve, and currently there are some existing retention basins that have overflows to the park already, which allows overflow to go that direction, but there's no physical approval or an easement from the neighboring property to do that. So that's kind of why we're in front of you to get, I'm going to say permission or allowance to give us the opportunity to overflow onto the Woodland Preserve property to allow us to do a 25-year stormwater control event in our retention basins. As we had our staff meetings with staff, or meetings with the staff and the township engineer, there are natural routes that are through the preserve property that come from the retention basins, all go down and contain everything on the preserve property to, I think it's kind of the start of Barker Creek, kind of runs through the preserve property and heads towards the west down to Holiday Road, or sorry, to 5 Mile Road. But there are natural directions and paths that currently exist, and that's what we would follow. And I think Brian kind of said that same, Brian Sosa kind of said the same thing, as it's kind of it's set up to do this, but we just need to get the permission from the township to allow us to overflow out of our basins onto this property. So that's kind of our proposal.
And right now, we're not looking for the actual easement. We don't have the easement language in front of us and so forth, but we wanted to get this in front of the township board because we didn't want to spend a lot of time if we couldn't pursue this, or if you couldn't pursue this. So we wanted to have the discussion at the board, and then if the board was favorable to this, then we could work on the details of it, the easement language, location, and all of those types of things.
That's correct, yes.
So with that, does any board member have a question for Bill or for Claire or for myself? Mindy?
The basin that is not backing up to the preserve, where is that one going?
That will either have to be a 100-year back-to-back event, or we will create a swale and/or storm piping to collect it into a basin that will overflow to the west. Currently, the overflow of the grade is to the westerly direction, but we would either have to physically create a swale or storm sewer to direct it to that basin in the southwest corner, or we'll have to make that basin size to accommodate a 100-year back-to-back event.
Are you going to go through one of those lots?
No, we would not. It would go around the south end. More than likely, we'd have to have some storm sewer, just because of the road grades and the slopes, but we haven't got that far because we want to kind of get the feel of the board to see if this even is an option. If it's not an option, then we have to do, all of our basins will have to be back-to-back 100-year events.
It's pretty steep right there.
Any other questions? Glenn?
It's, I read this and looked at the print, and I personally don't have any problem with it. The only concern I have, is there any liability to the township by allowing this? And if that's something, if there could be, is that something they would sign documents, say they'd be responsible for?
Sure, that's a good question. Well, a couple thoughts come to mind. One is, this came together pretty quickly as we had the meeting. So one thing, if the board is interested in doing this, I would condition that on a recommendation from our township engineer, and also with my conferring with our legal counsel. But one of the thoughts that comes to mind is that we already have some stormwater that is on the Holiday Woodlands natural area as well. I don't know the locations of that. I'm hearing what you say, and that rings true or logical to me, because remember, a lot of this property was developed as subdivision earlier, so that would not surprise me. Some of the lots we even have down off of
Yorkshire?
no, actually a little further
Holiday
north.
Village.
Holiday South.
Holiday Village.
Because part of the Holiday Woodland natural area property, it was actually some of those lots. Other questions, comments? I, like Glenn, don't have an issue with this. Again, I would have preferred to, and it was just a timing issue, to have the letter of concurrence from Wade Trim, and as well, we'll ask that question of legal counsel. But barring anything in those two conversations that would concern us, I would recommend that we proceed letting you allow that plan with Wade Trim and determining the easement language, then to come back and approved here and then recorded.
I'm fine with that, but I'm very curious at how you're going to get that water, the speed of that water dissipated coming down that hill.
Okay, is there a motion? Or would you prefer to do this consensus and we will bring it back to you? Bill, do you feel like you?
You didn't request a motion.
I did not. You're exactly right. I think I had it based upon discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and discussion only, I said. Okay. Well, would this be enough, this does anybody have an objection to it? Let me put it that way.
Now, I look to those of you that live in that area, that lock that area, that have the expertise in that. I'm listening to what you're saying. With concurrence with that, I'm okay moving forward.
Matt, any comments? Okay. With that, if you're comfortable with that, Bill, we'll proceed working on that administratively with you.
Perfect. Yeah.
And then,
Blair and Brian Sosa, and we'll work out the details and get it back to her and staff and legal counsel, exactly, and then we'll be bringing it back to you.
sounds good. Thank you for being here
All right.
tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Absolutely. With that, we will move on to a request for a liquor license. In front of us, we have Stellar Liquor License. And is Jimmy Asmar here tonight? Very good. Well, thank you. Come on up, make your way up. So this is Stellar Hospitality, which is constructing the hotel on the eastern side of US 31 North. They are asking for and this goes through some pretty decent detail, new on-premise B hotel resort license, off-premise SDM license, and then some different permits that are noted. The packet included the request, and it also included the Lara's resolution filled out, and then pulled some information on which types of permits require legislative action. And you can see really for this one for us, it's only the new Resort B hotel license. And of course, always what a municipality wants to know is, does that affect our quota? This is not a quota license. This is different than that. It's similar under the same statute as the one that we did for Werfel. And there's a financial commitment from the applicant on that. Mr. Asmar, would you like to add anything further?
Thank you. Jimmy Asmar, Stellar Hospitality and Premier Hospitality, thank you for having us. Definitely would love to have your consideration for the B Hotel liquor license for the project we're building, the Marriott Residence Inn in East Bay. We have contacted all of the escrowed licenses that we're aware of, both email, telephone number, mail, and certified mail, which will be part of that, the MLCC application. So we have, we've tried other avenues of getting it. We are desperately looking to get the liquor license so that we can have a best-in-class experience for our guests and for the surrounding neighborhoods that would visit the property, visit the restaurant and the bar. And we hope, to get your consideration for that.
All right, very good, thank you. Claire, this was approved by the Planning Commission, and when it went through site plan approval, there was awareness that there was a restaurant and so forth on the site.
Yep, so they received site plan approval back in March of 2022. They received a land use permit, so they met all the conditions in August of 2022, and so that's when they began construction. So that land use permit was for 2 extended stay hotels and the drive-through retail component. So this is the first one. As a part of that approval, the approval was for the the restaurant to be open to guests only. So that was kind of before we went back and made some modifications and changes to our parking standards. So if you'll recall, Alexandra Inn came back to the Planning Commission, had them take a second look at that, and were able to open it up to non-hotel guests based on kind of parking and adjacent transit, TART access, their employees and the vehicles, they were the parking requirements. So this applicant would have that same opportunity to come back to Planning Commission if they chose to open it up as well to non-hotel guests. But for right now, it would be limited to only hotel guests.
Okay, so the possible motion that we have based on whether approval is required or if we are just able to offer comment or opinion, the possible motion is to move to recommend Stellar Hospitality application for the new on-premise B hotel resort license to Lara, and that again is the license where they need the resolution, and to submit that corresponding resolution, LCC 106, and to offer no comment or opinion on the remaining licenses or permits. That motion can be altered, that motion can be offered. Are there any questions from board members, or is there a motion?
Sounds like a good motion. I'll support that.
So the motion is moved. Is there support?
Or,
Okay, the motion is moved by Escortade. There is lots of support, so you can pick one, and we'll pick Lyle. And with that, did you have anything further, Mr.
Thank you
Esmeyer?
very much. I thank everybody for your consideration, and we look forward to being part of the community.
Well, thank you.
My only question to you is, would you like this resolution emailed to you, or would you like to have it picked up?
Either, if you could email, it would be excellent. Thank you.
Happy to do that. It'll be to you tomorrow afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So with that, it is a resolution. I don't know that they spell out that we need a roll call vote, but just in case, we'll take one. Ann?
Sure. Escortade.
Yes.
Lyle.
yes.
M. Cortade.
Yes.
Bartlett.
Yes.
Walters.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes. Very good, thank you. Thank you for being here this evening. Okay, with that, we will move on to the adjusted agenda item of the new zoning ordinance and zoning map. And Claire, I will let you do the overview on that.
Okay, so tonight you have the opportunity to adopt the new zoning ordinance and zoning map. You'll recall this process began back in September of 2022, when the subcommittee began meeting bi-monthly, working through the draft zoning ordinance. We had a handful of special work sessions with Planning Commission. You'll recall there was a joint work session with the Township Board to review the changes. On October 1st, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on the draft zoning ordinance, unanimously recommended it to the Township Board for approval with two changes that have been integrated into this ordinance before you. One of them was related to retaining walls and just to enhance the protections of retaining walls within an environmentally sensitive area. The second one was to revert to the current zoning for minimum density in all areas outside of the urban growth boundary. So both of those changes were made. That's what you reviewed back at your October meeting when this ordinance was introduced. So no changes have been made since the October meeting. And we really appreciate both the Township Board and Planning Commission working through this process. It was a long process. Appreciate all of the public input that we've received. We have made some pretty substantial changes to the zoning ordinance, so I think it will be, a learning process for everyone as we work through the new ordinance. But I think overall there's a lot of positive changes that have been made.
Great. Claire, do you have, I know that you had a listing of topics that the Planning Commission wants to revisit. Could you go over specifically what those are?
Sure. And Mindy, let me know if I miss anything.
Okay.
So there's three main items that we've identified for this winter that the Planning Commission's going to look at. The first one is just revisiting the sign and billboard standards in the regional business district and really in all commercial districts. And that was really, we held off on finalizing those changes in this ordinance because we wanted to finalize the public visioning effort for the US 31 Beach District. And we had a community survey that closed after the public hearing of the draft zoning ordinance. So that's going to be early in 2025 that we're going to be revisiting those sign and billboard standards. The Planning Commission is also planning on revisiting the allowances for camping on private property, also known as temporary dwelling. So it's going to be an item that the Planning Commission will revisit this winter. And then the third one is revisiting the appropriate density in the areas outside of the urban growth boundaries. We discussed with the Planning Commission last Thursday evening at the Planning Commission meeting, hosting a agricultural/open space forum, public forum, and we're have spoken with MSU Extension to come and provide some education and information and have that be a session that's open to all members of the public. And we're looking at likely March for that, but that will be advertised and we'll keep you updated on details. So those are the three items that we've discussed with Planning Commission. I think there's two other areas that I'd like to keep an eye on and just want to mention at this time where we've made some significant changes to the ordinance. And just as we administer it, I think it's the two areas that we should keep an eye on. So one is in the environmentally sensitive areas, we have added requirements for steep slopes, so anything 15% or greater, as well as prohibition on retaining walls in most instances. And so in meeting with our township engineer, they've indicated that in some instances, like a geotech engineer will be required to ensure that a retaining wall is necessary, to take a look if it is a steep slope, make sure that it's designed in an appropriate way. So we're looking at private properties submitting escrow, and in some cases that escrow, we're looking at like $3,000 for the escrow. So I think that's just one area where we're going to need to take a close look at and just make sure that those expenses are not overly burdensome, and just as we work through that. That's one area that I definitely want to keep an eye on. The second one is just in the commercial areas. We made some changes to our commercial standards, requirements for building materials and some other design standards to help with some of the placemaking amenities. We've also heard concerns from like a workforce housing standpoint, and also just development friendly, some concerns just about making those types of developments more challenging, adding additional costs. So that's another area that I would like to just take a look at, and just with the changes, see how that is working over time.
Well, it's been mentioned many times throughout this process, which has been a long, good, and sometimes painful, sometimes wonderfully, challenging in a way, but in a good way, to get to this. But it's been mentioned several times, it's a living document. And the list that you started when you began here on the current zoning ordinance will begin again once this one is passed. So, and that's because, you have to work with this zoning ordinance as people are developing. And it really highlights some of the challenges that we might find. Mindy?
One of the things that I also wanted to mention was the lighting standards for residential. It's not something we wanted to, we talked about in the joint that we were going to, look at them a little bit, but I think it's one to keep an eye on as we go through it to see if we do need to change those standards. But we do need some training and education to our residents.
Yeah. And to, is that a zoning, is it a general law, is that a, how do you do that? So, if we do. All right, very good. Again, much appreciation for staff, for the consultants that we hired. I think that they were a very good pick. How do you feel about that pick, Claire, after being with them for about a year and a half now?
I think it was great. I enjoyed working with them. I learned from them. It was nice to have a fresh perspective and all of the different communities that they've worked with. So they were, I thought, a great asset to the team.
Well, good. And most certainly, the public engagement, that's what makes a document a master plan and a zoning ordinance. And with that, we have a possible motion, it all has been noticed and so forth, to approve the adoption of the new zoning ordinance and map, which shall become effective 8 days after publication. Is there any further comments and questions on this first?
No, I appreciate the planning commission going through all this and then listening to everybody concerned and going back, so.
Definitely.
As our member of the subcommittee, I do appreciate everything that took place during that period. It was long, it was drawn out. When you mentioned the consultants, once we got them slowed down so we could all follow them, it was okay. The first few weeks, they were kind of pushing pretty hard to get things done because we had a lot to get done. As a document, I think it's great. We need to have a zoning ordinance. There's things I disagree with, we all disagree with certain things, I'm sure. But as an overall document, I think it's really good. So,
Yeah, I would concur with that as well. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the adoption of the new zoning ordinance and map, which will become effective 8 days after publication.
Support.
Okay, a motion is made by Walters and supported by Bartlett. And again, the public hearing has already been held on this. So with that, we will, if there's no further discussion, take a roll call vote.
Walters.
Yes.
Bartlett.
Yes.
Escortade.
Yes.
Lyle.
Yes,
M. Cortade.
yes.
Friend.
Yes. Very good, thank you. Thank you, Claire, for all your work on this.
And that's
Thank you.
resolution 2024-25.
Okay, very good. With that, we'll move on to the Special Assessment District, Road Special Assessment District for Scout Camp and Traeger Roads. We do have Larry LaCrosse, who is here from the Grand Traverse County Road Commission. This is a public hearing. I do want to go over the information that is in the packet before we open up that public hearing. As you know, the last time that we met on this, there was a public hearing on June 10th. At that time, resolutions 1 and 2 were presented to the board. And when I say 1 and 2, not numbered 1 and 2, but the first and second resolutions of this SAD. At that time, it was decided that there would be an on-site meeting by the Road Commission and some further information. So you do have in your packet today those 2 resolutions that you saw in June with the dates updated. You also have the first communication that went out. It's on page 114 of the packet. This was a joint communication between the Road Commission and the Township, which notified all of the property owners in the proposed special assessment district of the on-site meeting, who they could contact with, and to who with certain types of questions, and then included about 2.5 pages of some FAQs. That meeting was held on October 9th, and I appreciate, and I think the Road Commission did a nice job of being there and going over some of the improvements and fielding questions. We did as well before that meeting, which we don't normally do. We usually do it between the first public hearing and between the second public hearing. We did do a draft assessment roll because we already knew the cost. So that was included to residents, and it is on page 118 and 119 of your packet. Following that meeting and the FAQ and the draft rule going out, a follow-up document went out which explained what the next steps would be and where they could find more information, pose questions, And it also included a special assessment district form. As you know, we've used petitions before, people who are for it, people who are against it, resident advocates, residents who don't want to see it go forward. And with the last one, it became a little bit tricky when people were signing one and then not signing or taking their name off one, and it was a little unclear. So we gave everybody the opportunity to fill out a special assessment district form for each parcel included in the draft assessment roll. They were able to indicate what property, the recorded owners, if they supported the petition, or if they rejected and did not support the petition. And they were to sign it and ask to return it to the township. Again, that included the assessment roll, and we have noticed this meeting, and that's included as well. On your desks, you will find an Excel spreadsheet that has the results of the form that was sent to everybody. The first 2 pages include the actual responses. These are sorted by response and then by road type. So you can see if you go through, in the fourth column from the left, how they responded. And then on the bottom of the second page, you can see the calculations. So for the percent foot for the special assessment district, the number of feet that the forms that were submitted that were in favor of it, how many front footage feet they represented, because recall that Public Act 188 has you do the calculation on the front footage of the improved property. All of these things were reviewed prior to going out and confirmed with legal counsel on which properties fall into that category. And then you also have, in the second column, those who, the front footage that responded that they were not in favor of the special assessment district, and what that calculates to be. So it is 55% who are not in favor of the special assessment district. We have 1%. And then at the end, you'll see all of these in the fourth column that say no response, that we don't have anything. We did have 2 come in like 15 minutes before the meeting, so those are not in there. However, I can tell you even quickly that they, let me just see the last name.
One flipped for, became against, and the other one was for.
This is Harlacher for. Oh, this one submitted a second one? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that one.
Flipped from-
It shows that it was for on the fourth page, but it is against. On the second page, it
Their
showed no
address,
response.
5384. Let me just find it.
It's on the bottom of the
Second page? Let me see that one, Sue. Can you point out where it is? Which one?
Sixth one up.
So this one stayed for, I'm sorry, this one.
It didn't change then, okay.
Well, no,
They
but
submitted
On
one.
the fourth page, you had it marked as for.
No, that's not their response.
Okay.
That's not their response. So you're saying then 2 of the no responses, 1 replied for and 1 replied against. I understand. Thank you. And neither of those will impact the calculation, because as you can see, it's no frontage private, and so that won't change the percentages. What you'll find in the last 2 pages, just to give you an idea of if the people who did not respond will make a difference, I've categorized it, and so the second 2 pages show, on the last one, you'll see all of those that did not have a response highlighted in yellow, and with the assumption, now don't everybody get crazy because this is just for illustrative purposes, with the assumption that they all were for it, even then they still would not achieve the percentage of foot frontage that would be necessary to overcome a 20% petition. Yes.
Question, on the non-frontage on public and private, are they not charged for?
They are charged.
Okay, because it didn't have anything here, and I,
Yeah, this doesn't have their assessment. Where you would see their assessment would be on the assessment roll that's included in here that went to them, the draft one.
okay.
So worked with legal counsel. This was probably one of our more challenging assessment rolls to figure out on how to distribute that cost, because we had, you think about the ones that we've done, right? They're subdivisions, and they've got a house, a house, a house, one after the other, pretty standard size lots. This is not. This not only has public roads, it has private roads. Those that are on both have no other option but to traverse over the road improvement that's proposed. So they are included. It's also included public property, property that's changed hands, and properties that are very different in size. And you can see on the frontage even how different some of those are. So working with legal counsel, the way to do that was to charge per foot frontage rather than what we did before, which was per plat. But yet, to include those people who don't have the frontage, a percentage is included where it is an equal distribution of costs. So we took 75% of the cost, equally distributed them, then took 25%, and then did that distribution by per foot frontage. That was legally defensible. We checked about that, and we validated that our frontage per foot was within the margin of error. So with that, special assessment districts are a partnership with the road commission and with the township. The township's task for a special assessment district is to do the administrative duties, for which there were plenty with this one. But not to diminish at all the help that the road commission provided in determining what the cost was and having the meetings and working in partnership on this. I would say we will hold the public hearing. I'm not asking you to make a decision before the public hearing. However, I do want to point out that, you all know the way special assessments go. If you go down to special assessment and 20% of the people file to stop it, then you have to have 51% of the people file to keep it going. This will show you that there's not the 51% to keep the special assessment district going. Our intent as a township, and why we have 10% as a policy, is to help and assist neighborhoods who want to undergo this. It is not to make neighborhoods that don't want to undergo it do it. So with that, I would suggest that the board consider not adopting the resolutions at this time. Mindy, what was your question or
I have a
comment?
math question.
Sure.
Of the 25%, so it's 75% with the front footage and 25% that don't have the front footage for
On the
the cost,
assessment roll.
right? Right? Those 25% of the cost, they don't have any front footage, so their approval or their...
No, they do have. The 25% are the per foot frontage. It's the 75% that's spread uniformly over all of the parcels, regardless of frontage.
Okay, so those that don't have front footage, do they count in
Nope,
this?
and this takes care of that. As you can see from take a look at a non-frontage. Let's go on the second page and the first parcel. And you'll see that they have no frontage. They are off of a public road but have no frontage. They did respond, they are against it. Do you see on the second column from the left, their footage is not taken into account there. So they've let us know what their preference is. However, legally, that doesn't calculate into the 50% or the 20%.
So okay. Oh, I got it.
It's been, let's put it this way. I appreciate Scout Camp and Traeger Roads being interested in this, because you could pretty much throw any special assessment district at this township now, and we got it covered. But So that's where we lie on this one. With that, I'm going to open the public hearing. It is 7:15, and ask that anybody who would like to make public comment, please come forward, introduce yourself, and make your comment. If there is someone standing and you know that you would like to deliver public comment, please come up and be right after them so we don't have a lot of transition time there. So if there is anyone who would like to make public comment, feel free to come up and do so. We do have a 3-minute time limit, and we'll be watching that for sure. Come on up. Sure. How are you tonight, sir?
Pretty good.
And if anyone that wants to come up behind him, if they choose to, feel free.
Tom Case, I live on Circle Drive, one of the non-frontage lots
Mm-hmm.
in the SAD. I'm a little confused. You say the vote to move the SAD forward depends on the frontage people only. Is that what you just said?
That is correct.
And in the survey that came back, what percentage of the frontage people were for and against?
1% were for it, and 55% were not for it.
1% for?
55% not for it, and 44% did not respond.
1% not. Oh, 44% did not respond.
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any further public comment? Okay, seeing none. Sue, hi, Sue, would you introduce yourself, please?
Sure. Susan LaRose Grover. I voted to halt the special assessment of the Scout Camp Traeger Road, which is a county-owned road. In June, I think at the meeting, either Glenn or Sue mentioned, that this road has been before the Township Board several times over the 40 years that I've lived there. And I think the common thread why is because of misinformation on both those petitions that were spread or circulated in 2013 and in the 2023-24. I think with being about in the township as far as a parks commissioner, I could understand the costs, and when I saw the costs, I knew that there was something that wasn't right. But again, in the end, the roads are owned by Grand Traverse County, and that I do ask all the residents, at least the ones that I spoke with on the road, that we just all need to respect that road, slow down, and let the road commission go ahead and take care of it. It is a county road, so thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Hello, sir. Would you introduce yourself, Paul?
Paul Horvath, 5649 Traeger Road. First, I'd like to thank the Road Commission for all the efforts they've put forth in the East Bay Township, and particularly Beth Friend, to counteract all the rumors and the lies that were spread about this project. And I'd like to just further say that by voting this project down today, it's been voted down forever, because I don't believe the Road Commission will want to go through this again, along with East Bay Township. If you voted it down because you think it's too expensive, it will never get cheaper than it is today. And when we're driving down through the potholes and all that, just remember who to thank for this.
Thank you, sir. Any further public comment? Okay, we will bring that back to the board, and if I might, I probably shouldn't say this, but I probably will. With Sue LaRose and Paul Horvath both commenting, it's pretty obviously both were on very divergent sides of this issue. I want to thank those who get involved, and they are typically our residents and our resident advocates. No matter your perspective, whether residents agree or disagree, you are putting yourself out there and trying to do something, and I appreciate that, and your community should value that. So with that, we'll bring it back to the board, and is there a motion or comments from board members? I'm just going to real quick just ask Larry. Larry, I do want to give you the opportunity. You were so kind to attend tonight, especially when your board has a budget meeting. Any comments? Don't feel the need to, but if you would like to, I don't want to deprive you of that opportunity.
Larry LaCrosse, Superintendent at the Grand Traverse County Road Commission. I really appreciate the process. I learned a lot through this one. This was a very special one, like you were saying. Just going through it and meeting all the residents was great. Thought the on-site and the walkthrough was really nice to kind of be able to tell them and show them exactly what we were going to do with this project. So we just appreciate the support and everything for the kind words from people, and we're going to still be out there, and we're still going to be doing some work out there. We're going to try our best to make it better. You know?
Yeah, I did have someone ask me, and I've heard that there were some tree cutting out there by the road commission, and the question that was posed to me is, oh, are they already getting started on the special assessment district? And I said, no. Or are they preparing for the special assessment district? And I said, that's not my understanding or belief. They are doing some routine things that they do in all areas, and that road, I know that you guys identified that it needed some more sun on it to get some more drying, and that was probably what was going on.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. When we see things out there that need to go, we got our plow trucks that are getting ready to get out there. We want to make sure that they have wide enough area to do what they're doing. Try to keep that road as dry as we possibly can. And so those are some of the things that we're going to do in any gravel road that is facing the issues that this road is facing.
I really do want to thank you and your colleagues at the Road Commission. It's always, it's tough sometimes, the cards that both of us are dealt, and it's good when we're able to collaborate together, and I do appreciate that. I hope you will not take any offense to the fact that I'm going to let these nice people know that if they have complaints on the road, we handle administrative SADs here at the township, and if you have road issues, contact the Road Commission.
Absolutely. And you can call us, you can use our web application that, tell us the issues that are happening out there. If you're seeing some big washouts or big potholes or anything like that, please, please, please call us, and we'll try to get our people out there and do our best.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just?
Sure.
confirm to Larry, that app or whatever that on your website also lets them report those issues directly, correct? They don't have to call, they can do it online.
They can do it online. They don't have to talk to anybody. They can attach a picture. They can put a point on the map where the problem is. That problem goes directly to my foreman. My foreman create that service request and send guys right out right away. So it's been very, very nice to use, and then we can also track how many times we've been out on this road, how many times we've been out potholing, or how many times we've had tree issues and things like that. So it's been very positive.
All right, thank you so much, Larry. Appreciate you being here. All right, with that, I don't know technically that we need to take any action, although I think probably for the minutes, I would appreciate maybe an action not to move forward with the special assessment district on Scout Camp and Traeger roads.
I would make that motion to not move forward.
Is there support?
Support.
Okay. Motion is by Bartlett and support by Lyle. Any further discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by no? Thank you all very much who are here from Scout Camp and Traeger Roads. We appreciate your attendance here tonight and being engaged. All right, with that, we will move on.
I was going to say, give them a couple minutes, because it'll be nice.
It will. Okay, it's quieted down a bit, so we'll go ahead and move on. We have the lighting special assessment districts in front of us. While I get my paperwork in order, Tracy, I'll let you top this off for us.
Sure. This is the annual analysis of costs for the special assessment district. This is in Peninsula Business Park. There are 3 different phases to that park, and each phase has their own district. All 3 districts increased this year, and if you'll remember, last year we took each district was in its own fund on our general ledger. We then moved them all into one fund with separate line items, so we're still tracking their revenue separately and their expense separately, but they're all combined together as far as one bank account, or not one bank account, but one fund, so that there's not, you won't find one fund going negative.
Carrying another.
Yeah, so it's kind of just an accounting thing. But all three funds went increased, or all three districts increased this year. They did get a public hearing notice and the analysis mailed to them, and there was a notice in the newspaper as well. And I've heard nothing from anybody, so. And these go on the winter tax bill.
And those are all commercial district, correct, I mean, businesses. It's not like it's a residential neighborhood.
Right, yeah, it's all the industrial park down there. And even, there are some properties in there that are the Conservancy and stuff, and those are charged as well, because they're not exempt from special assessments.
Okay, so with that, you were looking for a motion to approve Resolutions 2024-22, 23, and 24, and confirming the special assessment districts 93-2L, 95-2L, 011L, and setting the 2024 bill amounts as presented. And I would also say we'll take these exact amounts and put them right into the funds for the budget. With that, we do have a public hearing for this, so if there is anybody who would like to speak on this, it is 7:27, and we will open that public hearing. Is there anyone who is here for the lighting special assessment district? It is a hot topic.
Every year.
Okay, with that, we will close the special assessment district and look for a motion that mirrors the motion I just mentioned to you.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2024-22, 2024-23, and 2024-24, confirming the special assessment district 93-2L, 95-2L, and 01-1L, and setting the 2024 bill amounts as presented.
Is there support?
Support.
Motion is made by Walters and supported by M. Cortade. These are all resolutions, so we will do a roll call for, and it will be on all three of them unless anybody wants to bifurcate them. Then, okay, we're going to go with the roll call.
Walters.
Yes.
M. Cortade.
Yes.
Lyle.
Yes.
Bartlett.
Yes.
S. Cortade.
Yes.
Friend.
Yes. All right, very good. We have that up. And we are to the last agenda item, which is the fiscal year 2025 budget. This begins on page 157 of your packet. And let's see, we had the initial budget and an overview provided to you on October 14th. And then in this packet is the General Appropriations Act, which will be filled out, the resolution of officer salaries, the 2025 wages, and then also the fees, licenses, and permits. Let's see, this is not a public hearing tonight. We did not have the time to have that public hearing as the number of days needed by statute. So we will be doing the public hearing in December. You have some information on that on the cover page as far as the time frame for that public hearing. And there were a few items, 5 items, that were adjusted from when you received this and were asked to take a look at it and provide any questions. The grant revenue was increased in our revenue in our general fund, $40,000 for the TART reimbursement of OHM fees. You'll recall that we already had $40,000 in there, and that was for the Beach District that would be collected next year, and we'll submit it for reimbursement. And then I had needed to include that $40,000 for the remaining of the OHM engineering work for the 3 Mile Trail. There is a wage adjustment for the deputy clerk and the deputy treasurer. I think I covered this in the cover page for the supplemental packet that started on page 240, which would have been about a 30-some page supplemental packet. It was mentioned about the deputy salaries just prior to the October 14th meeting. So when I did have some time to take a look at that, what I did have available to me was the MTA salary survey. So I filled that out. It's pretty extensive for the township. It's not perfect, but it's a resource. Filled it out. I did compare us to other townships, though I filtered out townships that are under 10,000 in population, because those are a lot smaller ones that you're looking at, like Whitewater or Union Township and other ones across the UP and so forth. When I did that, all 7 of the wages here fell into a very similar percentile, almost to the exact percent. And when I did the deputies, they were marginally below that. So about 10 points below that, so as a percentile. So I did adjust it. As you recall, in our wage resolution, we have 2 columns there which capture 3 different areas. One is for the COLA adjustment, which is 2.5 this year. As set, we use the Social Security Administration's COLA, or cost of living that they use. And then we have a column for industry or performance adjustment. So I put in 2.5% industry adjustment. So that was the second change. The third change was $20,000 for the server transition to cloud. I mentioned that when we did the overview on October 14th. And again, we've seen the benefits of moving to the cloud as experienced by TCAPS, Grand Traverse County, and so forth. And then the fourth one is we had Department 621, which was a special project, and that had to do with the work that we just finished up here today, which was the zoning ordinance. If you recall, Department 621 was all of the costs associated with the contract and legal for the zoning ordinance rewrite. As we're wrapping that up, originally in the document I gave you on October 14th, I left $5,000 in there for zoning ordinance amendments and review of updating the document by Giffords Webster. Seemed kind of silly to keep it in a separate department, so I moved that to the 702 department and added it in there. And you'll notice that in the footnotes of the 702 consulting line item. And then I did mention to you, I gave you a balanced budget on October 14th. And so to do that, I took out the $300,000 that the Parks Commission had for Grace McDonald Park and some of what they had for Arbutus Lake number 2 for phase 2. And that was really to illustrate to you what type of decision may be necessary if you wanted to not utilize any fund balance. Those were added back in, as you've seen that. Now you know, and you'll see the utilization of fund balance at the end of that, where our expenses then would exceed our revenues. And that would be a planned use of fund balance, which is completely legally allowable and proper use of planning. The attachments that you have in front of you are the printout with those footnotes. You, again, as I mentioned, have the General Appropriations Act that would be back before you in December, the COLA policy that was approved many years ago. You have the current COLA and CPI information, and then you have the, sorry about that, those resolutions that you would see in December of the township officer's salary, the wages, the cost of the permits, application fees, licenses, and initial escrow, and the public hearing notice. With that, I would like to switch to page, let me find it really quickly. The officers' salaries and trustees have utilized the COLA, and you can find that in those resolutions, but also on page 230 begins the wage resolution. You'll see that in there. That's been updated for transitioning from 24 to 25. With that, you'll see all of the positions have a 2.5% COLA adjustment. Those with another adjustment, again, either being industry or performance adjustment, would be the deputy clerk, the deputy treasurer with 2.5%. I did include the office manager and communications specialist, which are part-time positions that I have in this budget, but did not include their wages because we will approve what those wages will be when we do the job description and the posting for that. And again, we can update this resolution mid-year if needed. We have Director of Planning and Zoning. We have a 5% in there. That is 2.5% for industry adjustment and 2.5% for performance adjustment. We have seen that individual in that position successfully take us through quite a bit of public engagement with master plan, zoning ordinance rewrite, beach district, the RRC, and many of these are projects that I could not get a previous planner to move on. And Claire has happily taken on those roles and many more.
Just make sure that you clarify that. You used a total of 5%, but it's a total of 7.5 because you did a 5%
Correct.
adjustment plus the 2.5.
Yep, see
I
the,
just wanted to make sure that you corrected that.
so there's a footnote after Director of Planning and Zoning with the
You
two.
said 2.5 and 2.5, so I just wanted to make sure that that was clarified.
Yeah, it's 2.5 for the industry and 2.5 for the performance, and then 2.5 for the COLA, for a total of 7.5, yep. And then buildings and groundskeeper as well, similarly with that largely, well, number one, based on he's doing a very good job for us, and taking a lot of that on, and then he, as well, he is part of the ambulance, which is seeing that wage adjustment based on industry, an industry change. And let's see, we have the paramedic in there as well. As I mentioned with the buildings and grounds, that paramedic amount of the 7.5% other industry adjustment and 2.5, that was discussed. And in the budget, when we looked at the ambulance in September, we have, flipping over to the second page, we have, again, 2.5% down the line for elections, which we won't have that much of next year, but also of our appointed officials and elected officials that do the per diems or meeting per diems. You'll notice that the seasonal buildings and grounds, those we've been utilizing, those 2 to 3 individuals that we have on the roster are all with the ambulance as well. So we'll see how they go with their salary with the ambulance being implemented. So I've put that at 0 to 5% there. Let's see, you might notice again, for the paramedic and the EMT, the low amount stays the same. We do adjust the higher amount, but the low amount stays the same for the part-time because we want to be able to have that window to offer somebody depending on their experience level when they come to a city spay ambulance. And then with the fees, licenses, and an initial escrow, you'll see the 2024 and the updated. Claire, I might have you help us with some of this on the fees. In East Bay Corners, those recommendations came through the, did they not come through the subcommittee, I believe, right, Sam? Yeah, okay. And you'll see those on the second page. Claire, do you want to go over some of the larger ones on page 3? The engineering reviews, commercial, stormwater permit, and so forth?
Sure. So it looks like we're making more changes than we are. So we had a really good meeting with Wade Trim, and that was, it was precipitated on, I wanted to go over with them, make sure they were aware of our zoning changes, specifically on our environmentally sensitive areas, and just get a better idea on how best to administer that and what some of the fees were associated with that. So And reviewing that, like a land use permit for environmentally sensitive areas, we're adding that with an escrow of $1,000 to $3,000, depending on the scope of the project and what we're looking at. We're not always going to require an escrow in an environmentally sensitive area, but depending on if it's a steep slope, if there's significant grading involved, if we're looking at requiring a retaining wall, those types of things where we need geotechnical expertise, then, and Wade Trim doesn't internally have that in their Traverse City office, they would likely subcontract that. So again, we're looking at that type of escrow. So we also took the opportunity to take a closer look at our escrow fees for just other general engineering. And so one thing that I've kind of over the last several years noticed that we have a little bit of a disconnect is that we had just a flat fee for escrow for commercial or industrial special land use permit, and then for like a PUD. So it's just basically a flat, about $6,000. And so in actuality, the way that it's implemented is that we always start out with a preliminary engineering review. So what they recommended was for preliminary engineering, that's about $2,000. So that gets the applicant through the site plan review process. They take a look at the roads, they make sure that they've, accounted for stormwater, that they're thinking about water and sewer, but they're not taking the detailed look at it. Once they get through the site plan review process, then we would go back and the escrow fees are more in line and more consistent with what the costs are associated with a full stormwater permit, a full water and sewer review, a full private road review. So you'll see that we reduced the escrow costs associated with site plan review for like PUD, special land use, just to get them through that process. But then we've increased the escrow fees that are associated with the more detailed engineering assessments to more accurately reflect the charges associated. Trying to think if there's any. We also added, so we had a separate line item for like condo docs or a condominium subdivision site plan review. In actuality, it's like the site plan review costs a certain amount, and that's going to be whether it's a site condo or just a multifamily development. But then when it's a site condo, we also need our legal attorney to review the master deed and bylaws. So a legal review for that, we added a line item for $1,500. So I think that this will more accurately reflect the costs associated. The one item that I believe is a typo, and we can change this before the public hearing, is we've got $10,000 for the water and sewer. It should actually be $5,000, $2,500 for water, $2,500 for sewer.
Okay.
So I think I doubled it twice, so I apologize on that.
That's fine. Okay.
A couple other items that we added to the fee schedule. We added a fee for an after-the-fact permit, and that would be a double. So if you've got a new home, you put it in and you never get a land use permit, instead of paying $60, you pay $120.
Okay, Claire, while you're here, let's have any questions from board on the fees, licenses, application, or initial escrow. Sue?
Well, the one I have is on the bottom of page 237, the short-term rental. I know that we had been about this amount originally, and the board elected to reduce it. Are you saying that those costs are not covering adequately? Is that why you raised it back up to 500?
The 500. So that was a recommendation, and that's would be open to board input. We are finding that it's significant amount of time, both from the fees have been raised for the GovOS, as well as the just the staff time associated with implementing. And we can provide at the next meeting a breakdown of those costs to take a closer look at it.
Yeah, one of the things you'll note too, we've seen this happen before, and we do RFPs in the future. Claire and I've talked about this, because we've seen it one too many times where you do an RFP, you get some good applications, 3, 4, right? And then when they have subsequent contracts, they obviously spike up some. And so one of the things we've talked about, where it's pertinent, we'll put in there that they must provide the fees for the next, like, 3 years. Because that way, they have to live with that decision of that low one. It's just not like 1 year of pain, and then they, recoup all of those fees. They have to live with that decision for 36 months, so. But GovOS, we did not have that in there, and so, yeah. And we're in our first year with them still.
And can I just ask for some more discussion about the East Bay Corners and the reduction in those costs?
Yeah, I would.
Sure. Sam, you just recently had a meeting with your farmers market subcommittee?
Yes, we did. And we did a survey of the existing vendors that we have currently. And based on the sales data that we collected from them on kind of approximately how many sales they do per market, we thought it would be appropriate to actually reduce those fees to be a little more aligned with that, allow a little more accessibility into our market. Since it is very new, these farmers are investing in the market to continue, and it just seemed to align more appropriately with that lower range of payments. And then we split. We were originally having people pay like a seasonal fee. Nobody really opted for that because they couldn't either, they weren't ready in May or June. They were more of a late season. So we split up those kind of paying ahead of time. So you could pay for a few months at a time, and then you get a disbursement back of about 10% if you attend all of those markets, as a way to encourage people to attend all of the markets. So,
Sam, did those come, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to thank them. I just appreciate that.
Did that come as a recommendation from the subcommittee, or I guess I could ask Tracy that?
yeah, based on kind of the feedback from that survey, that was the recommendation that they went with, to recommend to the Parks Commission.
Okay.
I didn't get to attend that meeting.
Oh, okay. All right, well, very good, thank you. Any other questions on any of the fees, licenses, and initial escrow?
The only one that I was going to mention is on page 233. I appreciate the elections getting the 2.5, but I'd rather hold off at this point in time, because a lot of those are determined by the election commission, but also the county, so that appropriately through the county, the rates on some of those are similar.
Well, we can put that at 0 and just leave it as is.
That's fine.
And then, again, we have had mid-year adjustments or other year adjustments, so that's not an issue.
I just wanted to make sure I
Yeah.
comment.
Nope, that's good. That is good. Okay, and then with that, we also as well have a supplemental packet. Sue provided some information for that, and you have a cover page on that. That was the process that I went through with the budget, which is pretty typical to most years. And, that is in there for your review as well. Are there any questions for Sue on this?
And I do apologize, I didn't get it earlier. It's been kind of a busy time for us, so I do appreciate the leeway. But I wanted you to have the information. I wanted you to take under consideration the different surveys and recommendations of other clerks, MTA, the various entities that all, because of the change in the 9 days of early voting, all of the different requirements under the statutory duties of the clerk expansion, that I am asking for a raise. I appreciate that Beth has taken a better look at the deputies. I think both of them were underpaid, so I do appreciate that. But I had looked at things a little bit differently. And so I have a proposal there for the deputy clerk based on all of the extra duties they are performing. And I've also put in a request for a full-time elections assistant. That would be, we've had temporary people in the office with us that have been very helpful. but also very limited in the work that they can do. The work is not getting any smaller by any means. And there is also, looking at that, there is a wage increase for the clerk's office too, which I've never brought before you before. It's a very uncomfortable feeling to look at that, but I'm not looking at it as myself. It is as the clerk's department, because eventually I will not be here. And the work that is being done isn't any less for whomever may choose to come in after me.
Okay, with that, any questions for Sue? Okay, any questions for any of the other departments other than the ones that Sue would field, which is the clerks and the elections department? Sure. Andy?
Claire, back to the attachment A, we still have site visit on there?
Is this in the resolution?
Mindy, what page is that on?
233.
Attachment A. Which one is it on?
Here.
Site visit. Only for 703, 704, and 751.
Isn't that what we're paying? So good question. So we are not necessarily getting rid of all site visits in a special instance. Like, for
Okay.
example, if there's a unique situation and it requires a site visit.
Okay.
Oh, that's right, you guys have recently talked about that.
Yeah, and that's being discussed by ZBA, whether or not they're continuing site visits tonight.
Okay.
But yeah.
Good question. So, Tracy, did you have a question?
I did pursue sorry, I'm going back to Sue. The additional position, what are they going to do in the years that you don't have an election?
Well,
To be a
elections
full-time?
election work doesn't just happen on the even years. It's ongoing. With all of the growth that we are seeing in the township, we are constantly in the voter file doing updates, sending acknowledgement, doing voter cards, doing move-in, move-out, audit. All of those things happen daily. The changes in the law with the permanent ballot, people are moving in and moving out, and we have to record all of that. We had 60, what did I see, in my letter to you all, we had 69 new voters on the election 9 days. 47 of those were on election day. Those type of things happen regularly. Most of those were from our new subdivisions, our new complexes. They may not have all come on election day, but they are coming in almost daily right now. So they would not be doing any financials. They wouldn't be doing, so the BSNA, payroll, those type of things. They would be just dedicated.
You really think it's 40 hours a week to do that
I do.
on an everyday basis? Okay.
I do. And I see it as one that then frees up both the deputy and the clerk to be able to do those other functions, the payroll, the accounts payable, the ongoing things that we're spending extra hours to try to make sure none of it gets left behind. Also, so if there are 3 of us there, one of us might actually get a day off or a vacation. It's not happening right now because the work has to be done. We understand that. We've invested in this is what it needs to be done right. But I do see it as a full-time. I know that all of the offices sometimes are more busier than others. It's part of the cost of doing business, so maybe there will be a day that they aren't fully doing everything elections, but there's still the ongoing maintenance, there's still all of those things that do happen. So yes, I do see it as a full-time position.
Okay. Any other questions?
Not right now.
Okay. So we would like to have this, we need to have this for a public hearing at the December meeting, and not hearing a lot of questions here. I think that, I know that there was a workshop requested, but I'm not hearing a lot of questions or information. So what totals would you like for me to put in the public hearing General Appropriations Act to notice that?
Well, I would like that the board take the action to take my consideration for the clerk's office and have those added to the budget for the public hearing and for the noticing. I know that it is late notice, but I also feel that you have the documentation that we can add it into the budget.
Well, if I can say and be the I went through the budget, and the clerk's budget for 2024 was $148,800. So far, we spent $121,000. And with what you're asking for, it's going to be up to $227,000. A couple problems I got. Number one, when we start taking elected officials and start changing one's wage and not the other where they're not equitable, I don't think we want to go down that road. As far as, and I don't know how the election runs, I'm not. But when I start looking another full-time employee and we have one big election every 4 years.
I'd say 2. We have general elections every 2. I'm sorry,
Presidential.
I apologize. Go ahead.
Okay, the presidential, I'll rephrase it. But I just think, and the state set this up for this 9 days. If the state feels that the clerk should get some kind of a bonus for doing that, I would think the state needs to pay for it, not our individual taxpayers in the township. So I couldn't support it.
I appreciate that. And I wouldn't look at it as a bonus. I would look at it as being compensated for the statutory duties that are mandated with the voter initiative that was passed in 2018 and in 2022 that expanded the duties exponentially. We have done it without any additional consideration for the office, but it has been on the backs of 2 people that have worked many, many additional hours to make it happen. I understand that when you're not in it every day, you don't necessarily see that.
Right.
I can appreciate that, but I would also invite you all to become election workers on the years you're not on the ballot. Come and see how it works. Mindy has been a big part of that. We've missed her quite a bit this year because she did step right into the chair position. She also worked with the receiving board so that the quality control was done, that the hours of training, the hours of preparing, the hours of making sure that everything is as seamless for the voters takes time. It takes education, it takes experience. I do not believe it is unwarranted, but that, again, because I'm living it, I am the one that put in those extra 880 hours above and beyond this year, above the 40 hours a week, 42 hours a week. I'll continue to do it, whether this board chooses to adjust the compensation based on the Michigan constitutional change. But I don't know, I guess, how long would that be expected of the position to do that for the way that it is, and the deputy clerk position as well.
Now, I haven't, if I could ask a question, I haven't heard from any other supervisors that they're adjusting anything in any other Grand Traverse County townships. Has anyone else?
It looks like on the spreadsheet that Peninsula is.
Peninsula did theirs.
Peninsula's looking for it.
What?
Peninsula's looking at that.
It says they gave him $3,000. I'm looking at this spreadsheet. I don't know who put it together, but.
And it doesn't have all of them. Acme Township Clerk and Deputy Clerk both received additional compensation. Paradise Clerk received additional compensation. Union Township received an extra $28 an hour for those 9 days times 3 for their extra requirement. Green Lake Township Clerk and Deputy Clerk also received extra compensation. You know, a big part of it was none of us knew in 2023 when we were looking to adopt the 2024 budget what would happen, what it would look like, how it would affect us all. And what we found is it's affected us huge.
And so, but Long Lake hasn't, Garfield has not.
Not yet.
The city has not.
The city did do a bump earlier. But I've basically taken them out, and so did the county. They did a bump as well. Blair did not. So there are some, I don't know about Elmwood. They're not in Grand Traverse County. I haven't been able to get anything from Connie on that. Whitewater chose not to at this point because that clerk has retired. They felt that it was best that a new board, because all board members are brand new, and that they did not want to make that decision and then all leave. But, you know, regardless of that, you know, you'll also see that I provided you the spreadsheet of the one that the MEMC did in January of 2024. That just kind of gave an idea. This is just those with 10,000 to 20,000 voters, which is similar to East Bay. And this, again, was in January, before everyone felt the effects of what early voting did, and no reason AV and permanent ballot. All of those things that the voters asked for was put on a ballot and was approved pretty overwhelmingly by those that chose to vote in 2018 and in 2022. But yes, I agree with you. I have asked our legislators, I have asked our Secretary of State, how do they expect to fund this? What is the obligation to that? Because it shouldn't always be shouldered. And this year, the state did come through with quite a bit of funding, but it's a one-year thing. And it's not going to continue. So we've been able to benefit from that. We haven't realized it all. With the presidential primary, we did receive $45,000 from the state from that February election. We're supposed to be receiving some monies from the August and now November, but it's going to be fed through the county before it gets to us. None of that is for clerk or deputy clerk wages. We're not allowed to receive any reimbursement for those no matter what. Those are not, they're not allowed to be paid overtime. They're not allowed to receive compensation as a reimbursement. But all of those, I did a quick calculation with the one from the MEMC, which is all the clerks, deputy clerks in the state of Michigan that answered that survey back in January. And when I took a look at it a little more closely, for clerks, not deputy clerks, not managers, right now, when I look at those, the median wage at that point was $68,215. As of that point in time, this clerk's office was at $69,409. And so the median, half of them are above, half of them are below. And that's without the consideration of, you know, the impacts that happened.
Okay. With that, let me again reiterate, are there any questions outside of the two? Yes?
I'd like to say something. I hope you appreciate my position, since I am pretty close to the, but I'm the guy that witnessed, you know, making dinner at 6, someone not coming home till 9, and have to warm it up 7 days a week. Her hours of 800, you know, 880 hours on here for her and the clerk. You know, that's a $50,000 payment that would have been made if we were working hourly. The other thing you all seem to be missing is that due to the legislative change in the election law, the job description of the office of the clerk has changed dramatically. Any of you that went to MTA and went to any of those meetings that they talked about it, everyone I went to almost, the first thing they said, oh, those poor clerks out there and what they're going to have to go through. I think some of you heard that. If you read this article put out by MTA, and they highlight in there that if at all possible, you should increase the compensation for the office of the clerk because of the extra hours that they have to put in, period. The second thing I would like to notice is this, is that as a little bit of a history situation, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but, you know, and I'm not picking anybody, I'm talking about just the positions. The Office of Supervisor is in charge of assessing. Assessing has gotten to be such a big job, especially for a township our size. We hired 2 full-time professionals to do that.
Let's stick with the office of the clerk right now.
No, it's history, so let's not get too upset, 'cause I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about the position. And I think you're going to find that within the next few years, that's the same thing is going to happen with the office of the clerk. They're going to have to create an election office within the clerk's office. It's just the amount of work that's taking place. I just don't understand this negativity towards a simple proposal. She's put forward exactly what, what's happened. And, sorry, Glenn, I do have to correct you. We have changed different levels of pay, if you remember what this did. Remember at one time the treasurer was getting less than the clerk, and because of we raised that up to do it. So it does happen. We have done it, and it has happened in the past. But seriously, the job description for this, and anybody you want to talk to, anybody that is involved with it and understands it, we understand that the volume of work that has been placed in that office deserves more compensation. I'm struggling because there's some things I want to point out. As a matter of fact, as far as this election specialist, the clerk has said that she needs that, and I don't know why anybody else would question that. No one questioned the fact that we're wanting 2 part-time people. No one questioned the fact that we had added somebody this summer to the planning and zoning office. Nobody questioned all those. But now all of a sudden, just because it's coming out of one office, we are concerned about it. I don't think it's unreasonable. I've seen it. It's unbelievable. I get a little frustrated, I guess, at times. Like I say, you have to appreciate the fact that where I'm at, I'm trying to do what's right for everybody. Keep my own personal feelings out of it. But
Okay, any more comments or questions? Okay. Are there any other questions on departments outside of the, you're 217, 215, or the elections department?
I should also, if you don't mind, page 179.
Sure.
I don't know if you noticed it. It's talking about, it's the benefits. And it's talking about the benefits based on part-time and full-time. I think it's a typo because it's based on single and couple family in your footnotes.
Which one? Which
Right
line
at
item?
711, 100.
Oh, and that meant to be,
711,
you're
200, and then
correct.
712 looks like.
The numbers are correct. What I should have put there instead of PT and FT is single or family.
Yes.
And I can adjust that.
I would not want someone to pick this up and think that that's what we're doing part-time.
Nope, we don't have benefits for part-time.
We don't.
And so I will change that footnote to single and family. Any other questions?
I have just a couple of clarification. This shows on the revenue side, is our state revenue sharing declining over the years? Or is it proposed to decline?
Are you talking about line item 402?
State revenue sharing,
Oh, no, I'm sorry, 574.
What page are you on?
first page is what?
158.
No, but you'll recall that we had, I think it was 2 years ago, we had a large bump because they made an adjustment. And so the rest of the years are always an estimate, and they're always doing those at their state revenue sharing estimate. And so we kind of track those and then see what they estimated and then what they came in at, and looking at the percentages, and then usually budget on the conservative side of that.
And that's constitutional and.
CVRTS, yes.
Which is a new thing for us, that secondary one.
We've had it. and
We've had it.
Yeah.
It's gone back and forth.
We're one of the townships that did have it, but it's increasing for us, not by a huge amount, and it is being offered to more townships now. Okay. Was that on the revenues? The one revenue.
We got the smallest one this year as
Yeah.
years past, so.
Yeah, and the one revenue that constantly looking at, and I've mentioned this to you guys before, is the cable franchise fees. And, as we look at that, we'll as well start to look at other revenue sources. I know that, for example, I know it's not a huge amount compared to the franchise fees or, state revenue sharing, but things like doing the passports helps. Obviously, things, the earned interest that we have helps. It doesn't exactly help everybody everywhere across the economy, but it does help in the revenue line items here. So with that, and I did, when I didn't receive the information, I did ask Sue what she wanted to see in this budget, and those items were put in this budget. I would make a motion that we would proceed to a public hearing at the December board meeting, and that we notice the General Appropriations Act with the totals that are presented in the BSNA fiscal year 2025 printout with footnotes, and also add in the lighting SAD to that, because we have to add all those funds together. And so I would make that motion, and then we will bring back the resolutions that are affiliated with that. Is there support for that?
Or,
Okay. Any comments or questions? Sure.
If we notice it higher and change it at that meeting, we can do that, but if we notice it lower, we can't go up, correct?
I noticed it on what we decide the budget is, and I think it's a good opportunity to talk about it now and to decide what that is.
So you didn't answer my question.
I mean, we've already set, remember, we've already set the millage. That's in September.
Right?
So I think we should budget for what we expect to spend. Any other questions? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Ann?
Certainly. Who did we have here? Friend?
Yes.
Lyle?
yes,
Bartlett?
Yes.
Walters?
Oh,
S. Cortez?
No.
M. Cortez?
No.
3 to
Okay.
3.
All right. We will schedule a budget meeting between now and the December meeting, and we will take this up then. Thank you, everybody. With that, we come to the end of the meeting. This is an opportunity for public comment. If there's anybody who would like to deliver public comment, please feel free to come up and share your perspective with us. Hi, how are you doing tonight? Good, how are you? Good.
My name is Janine Livingston, and I live at 641 Peninsula Trail. And I'm here to talk about light pollution. It is a real issue with many consequences, such as impact to human health with sleeping issues, as well as with birds and other animals. And it also significantly impacts those who enjoy looking at the night sky without not wanting to drive an hour to get to a dark sky zone. And light pollution only continues to worsen with LED lights. Some of them are blinding. And I've got a security light over 100 yards away that shines into my bedroom window. And I just think that needs to change. And now's the time, because it's not going to get better unless people like you do something about it. And string lights are very popular and seem to be everywhere. I'd like to ask the board to consider a residential lighting ordinance. And I know many communities already have these, and some of the things that I've seen in these ordinance is that residential lighting should only shine down and shine only on one's own property instead of illuminating other properties and neighbors' windows. Second, security lighting should be on a motion sensor, not left on all night long. And lumens should be a consideration. That makes a big difference if it's warm light or white light, things like that. And dark hours should be specified in some sort of ordinance. I know a new ordinance would not necessarily fix all the existing lighting that's all over the place, but it would help maybe not make things worse. It would help with the new builds. It would help with the renovations and things like that. And if there was a lighting ordinance that would go along with the building of a residence, that would be a step in the right direction. Plus, an ordinance could then be used to educate other people about the impact of lights on everyone around them. So that's my request. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Any other public comment tonight? All right, seeing no further items, if there's no objection, I will say that the next meeting, oh, sure. Hello. How are you?
Good. Name's Les Henson, resident of the township. Do you have any timeline for when the new ordinance and map will be published?
That will be published and will take effect. I'm not sure, it's already been published, has it not? Will be published after this, and then 8 days in effect.
So you're saying it's already published?
No, it will, based on our action tonight, they'll go through the notification of the approval.
Probably looking at about 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any further public comment? Okay, we do have a upcoming special meeting with Acme Township on November 21st. We will schedule a budget workshop, and we have our meeting on December 9th. So with that, nothing else on the agenda. If there's no objection, we stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.